Hey guys, I'm Chief Brandon Grant, and I am just making this video to keep up with old tradition. If you remember last year, if you're a regular watcher of my videos, I made some very small Pokemon movie reviews, and I did one on the Pokemon Black and White movie, Victini, Reshiram, and Zekrom, and I decided that since the newest Pokemon movie just aired, I might as well talk about that and see what my opinions of it were. Just keep up with old tradition. So, the movie was Pokemon the movie Kyurem versus the Sword of Justice. And before I get started on talking about the movie, let me just say that I was so excited to see this movie. And probably the main reason why that is because of the inclusion of the Musketeer Pokemon. These guys are just awesome. Not just really in the games, but I love their design and their concept. Overall, I think they're really good Pokemon. I really wanted to see what they were going to do with them in the anime, like in a movie, like what are they going to do. So yeah, really excited to see them. And so I had very high expectations for this movie. And well, just keep that in mind. I had so much high hopes, and I keep slipping up today. Again, this is unscripted. So let's get started about talking about the story. Oh, by the way, sorry guys, I forgot to mention this. Spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen the movie and you want to, I don't recommend you watch this, or unless you've already seen the movie or you're okay with spoilers, then you're welcome to stay. So the story is about Keldeo, and he's trained to become a Sword of Justice. And the Sword of Justice is the name of the Musketeer Pokemon, since they're not called the Musketeer Pokemon. Not even in Japan, they're called the Sacred Swordsmen. But they're called the Swords of Justice here, which I honestly think is a pretty stupid name. It sounds like the name for a coat of arms in England or something. But that's just my opinion. So, and another thing about the Swords of Justice, apparently, I got their names wrong. I pronounced them wrong in the last video I made when I reviewed the Victini movies. I pronounced their names as Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion, when in reality, their names are Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion. This seems to always be a bad habit with me, and always pronouncing legendary Pokemon's names wrong until the movie comes out. It happened with the same deal with Dialga. Before I saw the Darkrai movie, I used to call Dialga Dialga, and as you know, I used to call Reshiram Reshiram. And it's a bad habit of mine. But hey, you can't really blame me. No one really knew how they were really pronounced. Even with Arceus, Arceus, whatever the crap you want to say it. Anyways, so Keldeo trained to be a Sword of Justice, but he cannot until he learns how to use his sword properly. And I was thinking, swords? Well, since they're based off the Musketeers and they're swordsmen, they need to have utilized swords in some way. What I usually thought what happens, like if they use like Sacred Sword or something, then they use their horns as swords. Turns out that's not the case. What happens is that there's a black spot on their head, and that's where like a ginormously big horn comes out. I was half right because, well, I wrote a fan fiction, I'm still writing a Pokemon fan fiction that includes the Swords of Justice, and I wrote out that they use their horns as swords. So I might have to go back and make some revisions, which I really don't want to do. So, and this is the thing I don't get. If they're based off the Three Musketeers, then I don't understand why they're quadrupedal. I mean, even with Samurott is quadrupedal. And he has swords sheathed on his front arms, his front legs. And he could just pull them out and use for battle, which I still think is awesome. I love Samurott. I love Samurott's design. And they didn't make the Sword of Justice like that, which I don't really know. They probably could have did the same thing with Samurott, considering they don't have fingers. Anyways, I digress. What Keldeo wants to do is that he wants to battle Kyurem, because apparently Kyurem is basically like a rite of passage to move on to be a Sword of Justice, for example. And Keldeo is a very, very brash character. He reminds me a lot of several anime characters who always just rush in without thinking twice. That's what Keldeo is basically like. So he runs off to fight Kyurem, and Needless to say, he gets his butt handed to him. The Swords of Justice show up, and, well, Kyurem freezes them in a block of ice. And we don't see them again until the end of the movie. Or at least close to the end of the movie. This brings up my first problem of the movie. We do not see the actual main three members of the Swords of Justice very long. We only see them at the very beginning and at the end. They don't play too much of a major role in the middle. So I was a little disappointed by that. But don't worry, it gets worse. In the fight between Keldeo and Kyurem, Keldeo breaks his horn. And because of this, he runs away. But since he passed through a gate to face Kyurem, then Kyurem has to constantly follow Keldeo around until the battle is over, until one of them is defeated. Keldeo eventually runs into our heroes who are taking a train to a town. I forget what the town's name is called because they say it like twice in the whole movie. They never even make it to the town. What they do is that they stop at a train stop. They get some box lunches, Darumaka box lunches. They come back on the train, and we see Ash's Scraggy didn't make it onto the train in time. I have a dog coming in my room. Give me one moment, guys. Sorry about that. I don't really want my dog interrupting my video. So, where was I? Ah, yes. So, Scraggy was still outside the train, and then everyone panics. At this point, I just wanted to go like this. Ash, you have a Pokeball. Scraggy has a Pokeball. Why don't you just return it to the freaking Pokeball? But no. No. They actually had to run to the other end of the car, and they have to have Snivy use Vine Whip to grab Scraggy, because apparently, Ash is too lazy to get his Pokeball out. So, yeah, that's just one of several facepalm moments I've had while watching this movie. So, that happens. And while they're outside on the car, they notice something on the top of another one of the cars. So they climb up there and they find Keldeo, who's busted up and bruised and everything. And soon enough, Kyurem shows up, and they run into Kyurem very early in this movie. So Kyurem shows up and he starts attacking their heroes, of course. But it eventually they go into a tunnel, and so Kyurem has to get off. And so they lose him for now. And, well, they take Keldeo to a Pokemon Center to get him healed and everything. And then, actually, you know what? I take that back. I take that statement back whether or not they didn't make it to the city or not, because they actually do. I'm sorry, that was a brain fart. My bad. They do make it to the city with a population of 0. You do not see anybody in the city. No one. 0, zip, zilch, nada. No people. So much lack of characters in this movie. It's not even funny. They don't even have like one of these guest characters come in to help out with the story, because a lot of several Pokemon movies have always had another human character joining our heroes in the adventure. Not in this movie. We do not get anybody. That was really loud. Instead, we just get our 3 main protagonists, just Ash, Iris, Silent. That's all you're really going to see. And we do eventually, we do see some people at the beginning of the movie with the train and everything, but aside from them, you don't see anybody. So that's another disappointment I have in the movie, is the lack of characters. Because there's only like 6 main characters. Just 6 characters that mainly this movie is evolved around. Ash, Iris, Silent, Pikachu, Keldeo, and Kyurem. Those are the only 6. And apparently, Kyurem has an army of Cryogonal, which he always sends out to find our heroes. Through all of this, Iris remembers a story that the Elder of the Village of Dragons told her about Kyurem, and about his ability to transform into White Kyurem and Black Kyurem, and has the powers of both Reshiram and Zekrom. And so she's a little worried about that, and soon enough, Kyurem does show up and starts transforming into either white Kyurem or black Kyurem, which they don't they'll dive too much into. They don't really explain how Kyurem can. He just can't. And that's another disappointment I have with the movie. It's just the lack of the origins of Kyurem. It's never explained where it's from. It never explains how it can turn into white Kyurem and black Kyurem. It's just thrown out there and says, accept it. So that's another disappointment. And so they chase the heroes into an abandoned subway. Well, considering it's a city with a population of 0, I wouldn't imagine why they have any use for a subway. So apparently it's abandoned, and they eventually come across apparently a museum of several kinds of vehicles, including trains and even a dirigible. So they just get the brilliant idea. Hey guys, let's go to the I cannot even pronounce the name. Dirigible, whatever it is. I still have a hard time pronouncing words. I'm sorry, and I call myself an English major. I think that's deserving of a facepalm. Ow. Alright. Oh, ow, that hurt. Apparently our heroes know how to fly one of those things. And so here's this first instances of, well, these kind of fake out scenes, if you even want to call that. What happens is that the Cryogonal catch up to our heroes in the dirigible, and they find no one but Iris. And then it cuts back earlier. Apparently, they dropped off Ash, Silent, and Keldeo off at a station while Iris goes up to distract them in the dirigible. And so they did that. And then here's another interesting thing about this scene. Kyurem shows up and he freezes the motors. So I just thought, wow, Iris is screwed. Okay, I hated her anyway. And so we cut back to Ash, Silent, and Keldeo, and they do it again. They come across an old rail car. Silent goes in and distracts the Cryogonal while Ash and Keldeo go to the forest to go back to where he originally met Kyurem and where the Swords of Justice were frozen. And so at this time, we sort of get some kind of backstory of the Swords of Justice. We get flashbacks of Keldeo training with them and words of advice that the Swords of Justice are giving him. And well, yeah, not too interesting, but well, at least it has more of the Swords of Justice. At least it has more of them. So yeah, that's kind of a plus, I suppose. And well, wouldn't you know, they do finally come across the place where he first met Kyurem. And it's around this time where Silent and Iris meet up. Because Silent stopped the rail car, and then he sees Iris, and apparently some magical miracle, the dirigible is still flying, and Iris is, well, alive. The dirigible didn't come crashing down, even though the motors were frozen. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. Don't look for any logic, because there isn't any. Alright, so Keldeo kind of chickens out on trying to go back to face Kyurem again because, well, again, he lied to Kyurem about being a Sword of Justice, and that might be one of the reasons. And he thought that was one of the reasons why Kyurem was so mad, and so he doesn't want to go back and face Kyurem to tell him, well, he was a big fat liar. But Ash goes on anyway and finds the Sword of Justice frozen in ice, and he tries to break him out. And of course, Kyurem shows up to stop him, and Keldeo shows up to save the day. My goodness. And this is where we have our final battle. And I am dead serious, that's the whole frickin' movie. I just summed up the entire movie in however long this video was. I'm not even going to check the time. So, let's talk about the final battle. Well, it's fairly long. It takes up about a third of the movie. Probably at least a fourth of the movie, at least. We just get back and forth between Kyurem attacks, Keldeo attacks, Kyurem attacks, Keldeo attacks, and a lot. So eventually, the Sword of Justice do get broken out of the ice. Iris and Silence join in, and then they just sit back and watch. Because this is not their battle, this is Keldeo's. And at one point, Keldeo learns that true strength was earned from being with his friends all the time, which in turn makes him transform into his Resolute form, which is the alternate form of Keldeo. I'm not really going to go too much into the design. I don't have too many problems with it. Just with the fact that it's another Pokemon with an alternate form, and honestly, I thought those were getting old after Giratina. So, yeah. Actually, no, I take that back. Giratina was cool, Rotom was cool. Kind of, sort of, kind of, maybe. Shaman... Well, Shaman appeared around the same time as Giratina, so I can't really complain too much. But anyways, I digress. So, Keldeo does eventually use the power of his sword. He finds the true weight of his sword, as Cobalion says, and, well, kicks Kyurem's butt. And, in turn, becomes a Sword of Justice. Not really too much to explain. And that's the end of the movie. Yeah, short movie, huh? I swear, it was probably the shortest movie, or at least the shortest Pokemon movie I've seen. It has to be. Because when I watched it on Cartoon Network, it was on an 1.5-hour block. And it had a lot of commercials, and those commercials were long. Probably all the commercials up together at least took up a half an hour. So even without the commercials, that had to be only like an hour-long movie, which I think is pathetic for Pokemon standards. Well, let's talk about some of the points I liked. I did like the inclusion of the Swords of Justice, even though they didn't appear very often. I do like Keldeo to an extent. The only real problem I have with him is his voice, which I probably shouldn't complain about too much, considering, if you remember one of my earlier videos, not necessarily one of my earlier videos, but actually one of my more recent videos, my video of Anime Bonsai 2012. The voice of Keldeo, Vic Magnoga, I think is his name. I don't really know how to pronounce his last name. He was once a guest appearance. He was once a guest at Anime Bonsai. I didn't go to it, but I had a friend who did, and he met him there. So I probably shouldn't talk too much crap about it because I know someone who met him. But even still, even if it was David Vincent who voiced him, I don't care. I wasn't a huge fan of Keldeo's voice. I'll just throw that out there right now. But I still did like Keldeo. He's almost a perfect example of a coming-of-age character. And I did appreciate the movie for its coming-of-age concept, so I do give it a plus for that. But other than that, there aren't too many positives I can actually say about this movie. Now, we could probably go over some stuff, or at least some differences that this movie didn't have, or did have, that as opposed to other Pokemon movies. For once, it did not have an antagonist. I don't think it even had a protagonist, period. The closest thing to an antagonist, to the villain, was Kyurem, but he wasn't evil. He wasn't necessarily evil. Keldeo crossed through the gate, which was basically an obligation to battle Kyurem, and Kyurem was basically bound that he had to finish the battle, or else, well, I don't know what else, but he was bound to it. He was bound to it. He had to fight Keldeo. He had no choice because Keldeo passed through the gate. So Kyurem was not necessarily evil. So there was no antagonist. And I thought that was just a huge, big negative. That just brought the movie like from here down to like here, down on level with like Manaphy in the Temple of the Sea. Which I really don't want to do it because it includes probably one of my favorite legendary trios. Probably besides the legendary birds and the legendary beasts. And then probably the Swords of Justice. So I don't really want to bash the movie too much because it has them, and I really like them. It's just, yeah. And again, the exclusion of several characters, or several human characters, might I say. I mean, the only main human character in the movie that does not count the main protagonists was this one chick who was selling the box lunches at the train station. And well, she was just there to be there. And then, probably my biggest complaint, there were scenes from trailers and previews that I've seen on the internet. Like, some of them were only released in Japan. Some of them were only Japanese exclusive trailers. I watched them, and they show scenes in the trailers that were not even included in the movie. Why? I will never know. Maybe they cut them out for some dumb reason. I don't know. But again, that's another negative side. So, I could just go on forever about some of the problems I do have with this movie. But I probably went over all the main ones. The fact that there was no antagonist, the fact there was no main human characters, and, well, sorry, and the fact that it was really short. It could have been a lot longer. This probably had the potential to be the best movie out of Generation 5. So do I think this movie is better than the Victini movies? No. No. Which is sort of sad to say. If I had to give this movie a rating, out of a scale of 1 to 10, I might give it a 5, or 4 or 5 probably. Because the stuff that worked well in the movie worked very, very well for considering the amount of content that it only had. Like, again, the inclusion of the Swords of Justice. That's still a big plus for me because I freaking love those Pokemon. Heck, on my Chief Skarnek channel, Cobalion is my channel mascot. So, yeah. I really like those Pokemon, and I'm glad that they were included in a movie. But it was a shame they didn't do much with them. Well, I don't have too much else to say about the matter, so I mean, I'll watch it again if I do have the opportunity to, but if you guys were expecting like a really grand story, like an epic battle between Kyurem and Keldeo, and with the conclusion of Swords of Justice and just how epic they are, you are probably going to get disappointed like I am. So, yeah. That's about all I really have to say about this movie, so yeah, that's it. So, until my next video, which I still don't know what it's going to be yet, I'm Chief Brandon Grant, and I will see you guys later.